Hi, Genevieve here. I just wanted to give you a quick rundown on pre-reading strategies. So I'm just going to kind of talk through that PowerPoint presentation. So we use pre-reading strategies to help us get a better idea of the topic or the author's main idea before we even read the text. So it just helps us guide us toward the most important information that we'll need to look for so that we get the most out of what we read. There are 4 pre-reading strategies. We start by previewing the text, looking for all of the important information. Then we predict. So we will predict what the topic and the main idea is, what the author's main point is. Then we will recall. So we'll start to remember times where we've maybe learned about this information in the past. What do we already know about it? And then we'll ask questions: who, what, when, where, why. What things do we expect the author to answer? What questions do we have, and what do we expect to get answered when we read this? So we're going to start with the previewing strategies because this is kind of the big chunk of it. So first, you'll look at the title. What does it tell us? Is it a complete sentence? A lot of times the title is extremely direct and will tell you everything you need to know about what you're about to read. Sometimes titles are very abstract and you'll have to look a bit further. Next, you can look at any headings. A lot of times under the title, or if you're looking at a table of contents, you'll see one major chapter title and then smaller headings under that. So these could tell you the subjects of each paragraph and give you clues to topics and main ideas. Next, you can look for any formatted words. So if you skim the article, do you see words that are highlighted or put in italics or in a bold format, such as this? This may mean that they're really important topics. They're places that the author's trying to draw your attention. Also, you want to look for repeated words and phrases. Is there a word that's used over and over again, or is there a synonym to that word? A synonym is a different word that means the same thing as another word. So like we use both the words fall and autumn when we're talking about the months between September and November. They mean the same thing, but they're different words. If an author uses synonyms or the same word over and over again, then it's a good idea that this is an important part of the topic. Finally, look at graphics. Are there pictures or graphs, visuals, things that make you feel some kind of emotion or give you some facts? These often hint at an author's main idea. And then look at introductions and conclusions. So later in the week, we'll get a little bit more into titles, introductions, and conclusions. But sometimes if you don't have time to read a whole article, if you just look at the introduction and conclusion, the author will state the main idea or at least give you a lot of information that guides you toward the topic. And usually in the conclusion, they kind of restate that point somewhere. So it's a good place to look when you're trying to get some quick information and you have not yet read the entire text. So we'll do some practice on previewing first. So we have this article here. We see a title, header, right, a photograph. So we'll start by considering the title. It's a question: what are child labor and forced labor? So it's a complete thought, and by reading that, I'm going to predict that we might have this question answered through the article that we read. Next, you're going to examine headings and subheadings. So here notice we have a heading in bold, drivers of child labor. So we can assume that also in this short article, we might talk about motivators or reasons for child labor. Next, look at the images that are associated with it. So at this point, we've looked at the title, child labor, what are child labor and forced labor? We've examined a heading about child labor, and then we have this picture that shows children that seem to be working in a factory. So I think I'm getting a pretty good guess of where this article is going. And then we're going to skim through this and look for repeated words and phrases. So even from the title on the picture, we would say, right, children, child labor. You see unskilled labor, labor and children over and over again. What are some synonyms or things that go along with that? We see production, price pressures, wages, wage levels. So these also are words that are similar and that go together, and that kind of give us a picture of what we're reading. Work to supplement income. So what I'm seeing here, just based on everything we've pulled together to this point, are a lot of common words having to do with children, labor, and workforces. So I'm going to guess that this article, I'm predicting that this article is going to tell me to explain child labor to me and how it happens, how it comes into existence. So after we've previewed, we're going to predict, right? So I predicted that the topic is going to be about child labor. What is the writer going to say about that topic? Based on what we saw, just without even reading that article fully, we could say that the article is probably going to tell us about how child labor comes into existence, right? The heading was Drivers of Child Labor. Recall, what do you already know about this topic? Well, I can remember reading articles about children working fields in America, even here in modern times. I'm aware that there is a child labor issue in India and in a lot of other countries. I don't have enough information about it, but I do recall that I've read a lot about it and that I am concerned about child labor, so I'm interested. So that's something that I know. Finally, you want to ask some questions, because when you ask these questions, you can look for answers in your writing. It'll help you to understand the text better, to retain the information better, and help you make relevant annotations, which we'll get into a little bit later as well. So 5 W's and 1 H. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. These are the questions you always need to keep in your mind when you're reading. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. 5 W's and 1 H. And you'll hear me say that frequently throughout our class. So in regards to the text we just looked at about child labor, who questions might be, who is responsible for child labor? Or which children? Who, where in the world are children? Where are children in child labor, right? How is this legal? How is this still happening? These are just some questions I have. So maybe you can come up with some of your own. But I hope that this quick presentation has helped you to understand your previewing or pre-reading strategies.